Darkness, not the darkness of night. Not the darkness of closed eyes. Something older. Something that existed long before kingdoms. Long before magic. Long before the first heartbeat. An endless sea of silver threads drifted through the void. Some glowed brilliantly. Others slowly faded. Every thread represented a life. Every beginning. Every ending. And among them, one presence watched silently. No throne, no crown, no face. Only countless silver eyes hidden beneath the stars. The keeper of balance. The one who remembered every regret. Karma. She never judged, never hated, never loved. She simply answered one thing. A wish made with a soul's final breath. Far below, a kingdom celebrated. Fireworks illuminated the night. The bells of the royal palace rang without end. The people cheered. Long live His Majesty. Long live the king. Wine flowed. Music echoed through every street. No one noticed the abandoned temple standing deep within the royal forest. No one heard the scream. Blood dripped across the ancient stone floor. A young woman knelt in the center of the ruined sanctuary. Long raven-black hair, pale skin stained crimson, golden eyes that had once frightened kingdoms, now slowly losing their light. She was the greatest witch of her generation, the woman whose magic had decided a civil war, the woman who had crowned a king, and now she was dying alone. Footsteps echoed through the temple, slow, unhurried, confident. The man smiled as he stopped before her. He wore a royal cloak. A golden crown rested upon his head. King Tristan, once only a forgotten prince. She looked up at him. Why? Her voice barely escaped her lips. Tristan chuckled. You still don't understand. He crouched before her. His fingers brushed a strand of blood-soaked hair away from her face. Almost gently. I suppose I should thank you. You really were useful. Her breathing stopped. Useful. Not beloved. Not cherished. Useful. You gave me an army. You destroyed every noble who opposed me. You even eliminated my brother's supporters without realizing it. He laughed softly. You handed me the throne yourself. The witch stared at him. You lied. I did. So every word, every single one. I love you. A lie. I'll stay with you forever. Another lie. You're the only woman I'll ever choose. The biggest lie of all. The corners of Tristan's lips lifted. I never intended to marry a witch. He stood. Behind him, another pair of footsteps approached. A beautiful noblewoman entered the ruined temple. Elegant, proud, a smug smile resting on her lips. She wrapped an arm around Tristan's. My queen. Tristan kissed the woman's hand without hesitation. We'll announce our engagement tomorrow. The witch's world shattered. Not because he had chosen someone else, but because he had never chosen her at all. Everything had been planned. From the very beginning, Tristan looked down at her one last time. You made one mistake. You trusted someone. I lowered my guard, she whispered. You lowered all of it. He smiled. Exactly. If anyone else had attacked you, they would have died, but you never defended yourself against me. Silence filled the ruined temple. She could have fought, could have destroyed them both, if she had suspected, even for a second, but she hadn't, because she had loved him, and love had become the sharpest blade. Tristan turned away. Leave her. She won't survive until sunrise. The king and his future queen walked toward the exit together. Neither looked back. The temple became silent once more. The witch remained alone. Blood spread beneath her knees. Her vision blurred. Strange. She had spent her entire life feared by the world. Yet, the only thing she had ever truly wanted was something painfully ordinary. To be loved, not feared, not used, not admired for her power, simply loved. A tear slid down her cheek. If there is another life, her voice trembled. I wish I could meet someone who would love me as much as I loved him. Her heartbeat slowed. Once, twice, then stopped. The silver threads trembled. Far beyond heaven, beyond death, beyond fate itself. Karma opened her eyes. A single soul had called to her. Not for revenge, not for power, only to be loved. For the first time in countless ages, Karma smiled. So, another broken destiny. She reached toward one fading silver thread. This time, I think I'll return what was stolen. The thread blazed with brilliant silver light, and somewhere, time began to flow backward. The silver light faded. Silence returned. Elvira slowly opened her eyes. The ruined temple was gone. The blood was gone. The pain was gone. Instead, she found herself standing inside a small wooden cottage. Shelves filled with herbs, potion bottles, ancient spellbooks. A warm fire quietly crackled inside the fireplace. For several long seconds, she simply stood there. So this is the body. She looked down at her hands. Young, unscarred, alive. The memories flowed into her mind. Elvira, the greatest witch of this era, living alone inside the witch forest. Tonight, someone was supposed to arrive. Prince Tristan, the beginning of everything, the beginning of the greatest mistake in Elvira's life. Karma closed her eyes. She already knew every page of this story, every lie, every betrayal, every death, and she had absolutely no intention of following fate. She walked toward a wooden chest. Inside were several books, a travel cloak, a leather satchel, and countless magical crystals. She packed everything she needed without hesitation. Not once did she glance toward the front door, because she knew within the next hour, Tristan would knock. He would smile, introduce himself, pretend to admire her magic, pretend to respect her, pretend to love her. Not this time. Karma blew out the fireplace, locked the cottage behind her, and disappeared into the forest. Miles away, steel clashed against steel. Smoke covered the battlefield. The northern border had become a sea of chaos. Hold the line. Don't let them through. Knights crashed against monstrous beasts pouring from the mountains. The royal banner still stood, but barely. A young man wiped the blood from his sword. Tall, broad shoulders, dark hair, piercing blue eyes. His silver armor was stained with dirt and blood. Prince Lawrence Ashcroft, the first prince, the crown prince, or at least he should have been. A massive beast lunged toward one of the younger knights. Watch out. Lawrence moved instantly. His sword intercepted the creature's claws. The impact forced him back several steps. Damn. There were too many. Another monster charged from his blind side. No time to dodge. No room to counter. Then, a bolt of violet lightning split the battlefield. Boom. The creature exploded before it ever reached him. The entire battlefield fell silent. Every soldier instinctively turned. A young woman slowly walked through the smoke. Long black hair danced in the wind. Golden eyes glowed softly beneath her hood. Her dark cloak barely moved despite the storm around her. Magic curled around her fingertips like living shadows. She stopped only a few meters away. The monsters hesitated, as if instinct itself warned them not to approach. Lawrence stared. A witch. She looked directly at him, calm, composed. I suppose you're Prince Lawrence. He frowned. You know me. I do. She extended one hand. My name is Elvira, the witch of the western forest. Around them, even the wind seemed to stop. Lawrence looked at the countless monsters surrounding his exhausted soldiers, then back at the mysterious witch. "Why are you here?" A faint smile appeared on Elvira's lips. "To make sure I met the right prince." Silence. Lawrence blinked. The right prince? Elvira's golden eyes briefly drifted toward the southern horizon, toward the forest she had left behind, toward the man who would soon arrive, only to find an empty cottage. She smiled to herself. "You can keep searching, Tristan. This story belongs to someone else now." The battlefield slowly fell silent. The last monster collapsed onto the blood-soaked earth. Smoke drifted across the ruined valley. The surviving soldiers remained frozen. Not because the battle had ended, because they couldn't stop staring at the woman standing beside the first prince. A witch. A real witch. The very people most kingdoms feared. One elderly knight finally found his voice. "Your Highness, should we arrest her?" Several soldiers instinctively tightened their grip on their weapons. Lawrence raised a hand. "No." Every sword immediately lowered. His blue eyes never left Elvira. "You just saved dozens of my men. I won't repay that with chains." Elvira smiled faintly. "That's refreshing." Lawrence tilted his head. "You expected something else." "I expected someone to point a sword at my throat." "That usually happens." A few nearby soldiers awkwardly looked away. She wasn't wrong. Witches rarely received a warm welcome. Lawrence sheathed his sword. "You said you came to find the right prince." "I did, and I found him." Silence. Lawrence studied her expression. No hesitation, no fear, no hidden mockery. She spoke as though she had already known the answer before arriving. "You speak strangely." "I've been told that." A young knight suddenly ran toward them. "Your Highness, the western barricade has collapsed. We've pushed the monsters back, but we can't hold another assault." Lawrence's expression immediately became serious. "How many wounded?" "More than 40, and our healers, they're exhausted." For the first time, Elvira spoke again. "I can help." Dozens of eyes turned toward her. One captain frowned. "Witch magic. How do we know it won't curse them?" Several soldiers quietly nodded. Lawrence looked between the captain and Elvira. Then, he made his decision. "Anyone who objects is free to heal them instead." Silence answered him. No one moved. He looked back at Elvira. "The wounded are yours." She simply nodded. No dramatic speech. No pride. She walked directly toward the medical tents. Inside, the smell of blood filled the air. Men groaned in pain. Some had already stopped moving. A young medic looked at her nervously. "Can you really save them?" Elvira knelt beside the nearest soldier. His breathing was shallow. His armor had been torn open by claws. She placed one hand above the wound. Dark violet mana slowly flowed from her fingertips. The room became quiet. The mana didn't feel violent. It felt warm, like moonlight. The shredded flesh began knitting together before everyone's eyes. Broken ribs shifted back into place. The soldier's breathing steadied. A moment later, his eyes opened. "I'm alive." No one spoke. The medic dropped the bandages in his hands. The nearby knights stared in disbelief. One whispered under his breath, "I thought witches only knew how to destroy." Without looking up, Elvira answered calmly, "That's because people only remember the wars. They never remember who healed them afterward." Outside the tent, Lawrence had watched everything. His gaze remained fixed on her, not with suspicion, not with fear, but curiosity. This woman didn't resemble any witch described in the history books. She wasn't arrogant. She wasn't cruel. She hadn't asked for gold, or titles, or favors. She had simply arrived, saved his soldiers, and begun healing strangers as though it were the most natural thing in the world. For reasons he couldn't explain, Lawrence found himself smiling, very slightly, and for the first time in many years. He wondered if fate had placed someone unexpected in his path. The witch forest was silent. No lightning, no strange manna, no mysterious whispers. Only trees. Prince Tristan slowly stepped off his horse. So this is the place. He looked toward the small wooden cottage hidden among the ancient trees. Exactly as the reports had described. Simple, isolated, perfect for someone who didn't wish to be found. He smiled. So the rumors were true. For years, stories about witches had spread across the kingdom, that they cursed children, poisoned rivers, stole souls, destroyed villages for amusement. Most people believed every word. Tristan never had. Not because he trusted witches, because he knew where those stories had come from. Fear, nothing more. Witches possessed magic powerful enough to erase kingdoms. Kings feared power they couldn't control. Nobles feared people they couldn't manipulate. So, they created monsters. It was easier to rule frightened people than truthful ones. Eventually, the witches disappeared on their own. They built hidden sanctuaries, masked their eyes whenever they entered human lands, lived quietly, far away from everyone else, exactly as humans wanted. Tristan walked toward the cottage. This witch will become useful. Months earlier, Lawrence had casually mentioned strange reports from the western forest. Lightning with no storm, mana disturbances, travelers claiming someone lived deep inside the woods. Probably a witch. Lawrence had planned to investigate after returning from the northern border. But the war had started first. He never had the chance. Tristan had volunteered instead. Not because he cared, because opportunities belonged to whoever reached them first. He pushed the cottage door open. It creaked softly. Empty. No books. No potions. No herbs. No clothes. Nothing. His smile disappeared. What? He searched every room. Nothing. He opened cabinets. Empty. Even the fireplace had gone cold. She hadn't left in a hurry. She had planned this. Tristan's jaw tightened. Someone warned her. His fingers slowly curled into a fist. No. His voice became colder. I was first. You were supposed to meet me. For the first time, something escaped his perfect composure. Anger. Pure anger. A frightened bird flew from a nearby tree as his magic burst through the cottage. The wooden table shattered. Glass bottles exploded. The windows cracked. After several long seconds, he inhaled slowly, then smiled again. Cold, controlled. If you've run, I'll simply find you. No one disappears forever. Several hundred kilometers away, the northern camp felt strangely peaceful. For the first time in days, no monsters attacked. Soldiers laughed around campfires. Some were finally sleeping. Others celebrated surviving another battle. Lawrence found Elvira standing alone on a hill overlooking the valley. The evening wind gently moved her dark hair. You should be resting. Without turning around, she answered. So should you. Lawrence chuckled. Fair enough. For a few moments, neither spoke. Finally, Lawrence broke the silence. You knew my name. I did. You also knew where we'd be. Yes. You arrived exactly when we needed help. Correct. He looked at her. Are you ever going to explain any of that? A small smile tugged at the corner of Elvira's lips. Eventually. Eventually. I've learned that people believe answers more easily after they trust the person giving them. Lawrence couldn't help laughing. So your plan is to make me trust you first. She finally looked at him. Golden eyes reflected the setting sun. No. My plan was to save lives. the trust would simply be convenient. For some reason, that answer felt far more honest than any polished speech. Lawrence folded his arms. "Can I ask you something?" "You just did." He sighed. "Another one." "You may. If witches are as powerful as the stories claim, why do they hide?" Elvira's expression became quieter. "They don't hide because they're weak. They hide because humans are afraid." Lawrence frowned. Afraid. Witches could erase kingdoms. That frightened people. So instead of admitting their fear, they invented monsters. They said witches cursed crops, kidnapped children, spread plague. Little by little, people stopped seeing witches as people. They only saw the stories. Lawrence remained silent. She continued softly. "So my people left. We built our own sanctuaries. We stopped interfering. When we enter human lands, we even hide our eyes, so no one realizes what we are." Lawrence looked down toward the camp below. "I never questioned those stories. Most people don't." Another quiet silence settled between them. Then Lawrence smiled faintly. "Well, I suppose one of those terrifying witches just saved my entire army." Elvira laughed. A genuine laugh. Small, warm, for just a moment. Neither of them noticed the silver threads of fate quietly weaving themselves together once again. The morning sun slowly rose above the northern mountains. For the first time in weeks, the battlefield was quiet. No monsters, no alarms, only the sound of soldiers rebuilding broken barricades. Lawrence found Elvira standing beside a small stream, quietly washing the dried blood from her hands. He stopped a few steps away. "I have a request." She glanced toward him. "I assumed you would." He smiled. "You really do seem to know everything." "Not everything, only enough." He nodded before his expression became serious. "I need to return to the capital." She remained silent. "My father, the king, is ill." The word lingered in the air. "Our royal physicians have failed. So have every healer and alchemist we've invited. They've spent months searching for a cure. They've found nothing." He looked directly into her golden eyes. "I'd like you to come with me." Silence. For several seconds, Elvira didn't answer. Instead, fragments of another timeline surfaced within Karma's memories. A dim royal bedroom, an old king growing weaker every day, physicians whispering that no disease matched his symptoms, nobles discussing succession long before the king had died, and one man, quietly smiling, Tristan. The memories stopped. Karma understood immediately. He wasn't sick. He was being poisoned. Not all at once. Slowly, patiently. Small amounts, enough to weaken him, without raising suspicion, exactly as Tristan preferred. By the time anyone realized the truth, it had already been too late. He had secured the witch's loyalty. He had gathered enough political support. Then, he simply removed the last obstacle, his own father. Karma lowered her gaze. "So this begins earlier than I remembered." Lawrence interrupted her thoughts. "If you refuse, I'll understand. You've already done more than enough." Elvira looked at him for a long moment. Then, "I'll come." Lawrence blinked. "That was faster than I expected." She smiled slightly. "I've never seen a capital before." It wasn't the real reason, but it was a convenient one. Far away, Prince Tristan rode toward the capital. His expression remained perfectly calm. Anyone looking at him would have seen a courteous prince returning home. Only the broken remains of the abandoned cottage still remembered the fury he had hidden. One of his knights carefully approached. "Your Highness, did you find the witch? Should we continue searching?" Tristan remained silent. For a few moments, only the sound of horses filled the road. Finally, "No, The knight looked confused. No, Your Highness. If she disappeared intentionally, she won't make the same mistake twice. His voice remained gentle, almost pleasant. We'll find her eventually. His fingers lightly tapped the saddle. The more important matter is father's condition. A faint smile appeared. So long as his health continues to decline, the court will become impatient. The nobles will divide. And eventually, they'll start asking who should inherit the throne. The knight lowered his head. As expected of Your Highness. Tristan looked toward the distant capital. There wasn't the slightest trace of concern in his eyes. Only calculation. Every person around him, every conversation, every tragedy, was simply another move on a chessboard. If one piece disappeared, he would replace it. If one plan failed, he would write another. The witch had escaped. Annoying, nothing more. Kings weren't made by luck. They were made by adapting. 3 days later, the royal capital appeared on the horizon. Its towering white walls reflected the afternoon sun. Thousands of people filled the streets beyond the gates. As Lawrence's company approached, the guards immediately opened the entrance. Trumpets echoed across the city. The first prince has returned. Citizens lined the streets, cheering as the soldiers entered. Many celebrated the victory at the northern border. Others noticed the cloaked woman riding beside Lawrence. Whispers spread almost instantly. Who is she? A noble? A foreign mage? Elvira quietly adjusted the hood, covering her golden eyes. Old habit. Most witches concealed their identities whenever they entered human lands. Lawrence noticed. You don't have to be afraid, she answered softly. I'm not afraid. I simply prefer fewer questions. He laughed. Fair point. Their horses continued toward the royal palace. Neither of them noticed. From the highest palace balcony, another pair of eyes had already found them. Prince Tristan stood perfectly still. His gaze ignored the celebrating crowd, ignored Lawrence, ignored the soldiers. Instead, it settled on the cloaked woman riding beside his brother. Something about her felt strangely familiar, and for the first time since leaving the witch forest, a quiet sense of unease crept into Tristan's mind. The palace corridors were quieter than Elvira had expected. Servants bowed as Lawrence passed. Knights saluted. No one questioned the cloaked woman walking beside the first prince. Her hood remained low, her golden eyes completely hidden. As they turned a corner, someone was already waiting. Brother. Lawrence stopped. Tristan. The younger prince smiled warmly before pulling Lawrence into a brief embrace. I heard about the victory. My congratulations. You've protected the kingdom once again. Lawrence smiled. It was a team effort. Only then did Tristan's gaze drift toward the cloaked woman standing beside him. And who might this be? Lawrence answered without hesitation. Someone I wanted father to meet. Tristan raised an eyebrow. A teasing smile appeared on his face. I didn't realize my older brother finally had someone in mind. I suppose bringing a woman directly to father means your relationship must already be quite serious. A nearby servant quietly lowered his head to hide a smile. Lawrence laughed. I never said that. You didn't deny it either. Tristan folded his arms. I must admit, I never imagined I'd see the day. My brother. The man who ignored every marriage proposal in the kingdom. Bringing a woman to the palace. Lawrence glanced toward Elvira. For a brief moment, their eyes met beneath her hood. Then he smiled. Why not? I doubt there's another woman like her anywhere in this kingdom. Silence. For the first time, Tristan looked genuinely surprised. Lawrence had never spoken that way about anyone. Not once. Interesting. Very interesting. Well, Tristan said with another easy smile. I won't keep you. Father has been asking about you. I hope whoever she is, she can help. Lawrence nodded. We'll see. The two brothers parted. Neither noticed the faint smile hidden beneath Elvira's hood. You still don't recognize me. Good. A few moments later, they stopped before the king's chambers. The guards opened the massive doors. Before stepping inside, Elvira quietly spoke. Lawrence. He turned toward her. Were you serious? He blinked. When you said, there isn't another woman like me. A small grin appeared on his face. Why? Am I not allowed to mean it? For a second, Elvira simply watched him. Then, she smiled. No. You are. I only hope. You're prepared to take responsibility for those words someday. Lawrence frowned slightly. What does that? Before he could finish, she pushed the doors open. The royal chamber was dimly lit. Heavy curtains blocked most of the afternoon sun. An elderly man rested against the pillows. His face was pale, his breathing slow. Yet, the moment his eyes met Elvira, something changed. He looked directly at her hidden gaze, then quietly said, a witch. Lawrence looked between them. You knew? The king smiled weakly. I've lived long enough. I know what witch eyes look like. Elvira lowered her hood. Golden eyes shimmered beneath the candlelight. Yes, your majesty. I am. The king studied her for several long moments. There was no fear in his eyes, only curiosity. So, you're the woman my son trusted enough to bring before me. Lawrence stepped forward. Father, I believe Lady Elvira may be able to help. The king slowly nodded. And what do you think, Lady Elvira? She met his gaze calmly. I believe I can. Then I place my life in your hands. Without another word, Elvira raised her hand. Golden manna gently filled the room. Unlike ordinary healing magic, her spell didn't simply restore wounds. It searched every vein, every organ, every heartbeat, until she found it. Tiny traces, hidden so carefully that no ordinary healer would ever notice. Poison. Exactly as Karma remembered, she concealed the realization. Not a single emotion crossed her face. The golden light slowly dissolved the poison, minute by minute. The king's breathing steadied. Color gradually returned to his face. His heartbeat strengthened. When the magic finally disappeared, he felt lighter than he had in months. Remarkable. He slowly sat upright. Lawrence's eyes widened. Father, I haven't seen you move like that in weeks. The king laughed quietly. Neither have I. Elvira immediately spoke. Your Majesty. His smile faded. Yes, please. Tell no one. Neither father nor son understood. She continued. Tell no one that your condition has improved. Not your ministers. Not the nobles. Not even Prince Tristan. Silence filled the room. Lawrence frowned. Why? I can't explain yet. But if you trust me, continue acting exactly as you have until now. I'll return soon, and then I'll explain everything. The king looked into her eyes, long enough to realize she wasn't asking, she was warning him. Finally, he nodded. Very well, you have my word. Then he smiled. You've saved my life. I cannot allow such a debt to remain unpaid. You shall have whatever reward you desire. Elvira shook her head. I didn't do this for a reward. Even so, you deserve one. The room fell quiet. Slowly, Elvira turned toward Lawrence. He looked back at her, confused. Then she faced the king once more. If your Majesty truly wishes to reward me, she smiled, then grant me permission to marry the first prince. Silence. Lawrence froze. The king's eyes widened. Outside the chamber, the palace remained as peaceful as ever. Inside, everything had just changed. Lawrence stared at Elvira. The king stared at Elvira. Neither of them spoke. Finally, the king cleared his throat. I must admit, I did not expect that. A faint smile appeared on his face. In all my years, I have never heard of a witch asking to marry a human. He studied her carefully. Witches live far longer than we do. Have you truly thought this through? You've only just met my son. How could you make such a decision so quickly? Elvira's expression softened. Your Majesty, you are correct. My people measure time differently. We live long lives, long enough to watch kingdoms rise and disappear. She paused before continuing. And yet, it has also been a very long time since someone looked into my eyes. Without fear, her golden gaze slowly shifted toward Lawrence. He never looked away. He never treated me like a monster. He simply spoke to me, as though I were another person. A gentle smile appeared on her lips. For someone like me, that alone was enough to move my heart. Lawrence felt strangely unable to look away. Elvira turned back toward the king. I would also like to thank you, and I imagine his mother, for raising a man like him. The king's expression softened. You've known him for only a few days. I have, but that is enough. I know you intended to officially name Prince Lawrence as Crown Prince. You simply couldn't, because your illness became worse. The king's eyes narrowed slightly. She continued calmly. I also know you have ruled this kingdom fairly. You do not judge other races simply because they are different. I saw that the moment you looked at me. There was curiosity. There was caution, but there was no hatred. She placed a hand lightly against her chest. The way humans understand people, and the way witches do, is different. Our perception of time is different. What takes others months to understand, I can often see within moments. She stepped one pace closer. I don't know how Prince Lawrence feels about my proposal, but if you allow me to remain by his side, I swear, no one and nothing will ever harm your family while I still breathe. The king quietly watched her. There wasn't a trace of hesitation in her voice. She believed every word she had spoken. If you doubt me, Elvira continued, ask any witch. Ask them what a promise made by a golden-eyed, which means they will all give you the same answer. A golden-eyed which never breaks her word. Silence settled over the room once again. Lawrence realized something. She wasn't trying to convince the king. She was making a vow. The king slowly turned toward his eldest son. Lawrence, what do you think? Lawrence looked at Elvira for a long moment, then asked quietly, is this a political marriage? She blinked once. He continued, if that's your goal, I'm afraid you'll be disappointed. I've rejected every political marriage arranged for me. I have no intention of changing that. For a heartbeat. Neither of them spoke. Then Elvira smiled. A smile so gentle it almost didn't seem real. No, I don't want a political marriage. She took another slow step toward him. I want a marriage where we lose ourselves in love. Lawrence forgot to breathe. I want the kind of love where your happiness becomes mine, and mine becomes yours. The kind that survives time, the kind that survives fear, the kind that people write stories about. Her golden eyes met his. I want to fall hopelessly in love with you, and someday, I want you to feel exactly the same. For the first time in years, Lawrence felt his heartbeat stumble. Not because she was beautiful, although she undeniably was. Not because she was powerful. He had already seen that. But because no one had ever looked at him with such absolute certainty. As if She had already decided there was no one else she wished to choose. He looked away for only a second, then turned back toward his father. If Lady Elvira is willing to take such a risk, then I have no reason to refuse. A slow smile spread across the king's face. So, you accept? Lawrence answered without hesitation. I do. Elsewhere, Prince Tristan quietly closed the door to his chambers. The smile he had worn throughout the afternoon disappeared. He loosened the collar of his coat, then walked toward the window. Who was she? His fingers tapped lightly against the stone windowsill. Lawrence had brought a woman directly to the king. That alone was unusual. But what truly bothered him was Lawrence's expression. He had never looked at anyone that way before. Could she be a noblewoman? If she belonged to one of the great noble houses? Everything became more troublesome. Their father's illness had delayed Lawrence's formal investiture as crown prince. Without the ceremony, nothing was final. That uncertainty had given Tristan time. Time to poison the king slowly. Time to gather supporters. Time to prepare. But if Lawrence had returned with the backing of a powerful noble family, the balance of power inside the court, Tristan frowned. For reasons he couldn't explain. An uncomfortable feeling settled deep inside his chest. He rarely trusted instincts. He trusted calculations. Yet this time, something felt wrong, as though an invisible hand had quietly moved one piece on the board. Without his permission, and for the first time since beginning his plans, Prince Tristan wondered if someone else had started playing the same game. The moment they stepped out of the king's chamber, the heavy doors closed behind them. For a while, neither of them spoke. Finally, Elvira broke the silence. I imagine my proposal surprised you. Lawrence laughed quietly. I think that's an understatement. She smiled. You don't have to accept it. He looked at her. I don't. She slowly shook her head. I don't want you to feel obligated. If you truly don't wish to marry me, then I won't force you. Lawrence stopped walking. He turned toward her. And who told you? I was forcing myself. Elvira blinked. Then, a small smile appeared. I chose you for exactly that reason. You don't hesitate to say what's on your mind. She stepped closer. Only a single step. Yet somehow, it felt much shorter. Her golden eyes met his. Lawrence, there is something you need to remember. Her voice remained calm, almost gentle. But never forget this. My people understand words differently. If you tell me, I don't want you, I will believe you. If you tell me, I don't love you, I will believe that too. She took one more step, close enough that he could clearly see the gold swirling inside her eyes. And if one day you look into my eyes and tell me, I would die with you, I will understand those words exactly as you said them. A soft smile curved across her lips, and I will do everything in my power to make sure we die together. Lawrence's heart skipped. She hadn't raised her voice. She hadn't tried to sound romantic. She had simply told him the truth. And somehow, that honesty was far more dangerous. He smiled despite himself. I'll remember that. A short while later, Lawrence opened the doors to his chambers. Elvira looked around, then looked back at him. Your room? Our room? She raised an eyebrow. So, from the first night, we're already staying together. Lawrence shrugged. You're my fiancé now. It would be stranger if we didn't. Then he smiled. Besides, weren't you the one who wanted to lose yourself in love with me? She looked at him for a long moment. I never said I wished to begin immediately. I merely wanted to understand the situation. Lawrence laughed. I was only teasing. He rang a small silver bell. Almost immediately, several maids entered. Prepare a bath. and bring Lady Elvira anything she needs." The maids bowed. "At once, Your Highness." Lawrence looked back at Elvira. "I'll return later." She nodded. "I'll be here." Meanwhile, Lawrence walked toward the Queen's residence. The moment he entered, his mother looked up from the book she had been reading. "You came." Then she noticed the strange expression on his face. Something happened. It did. He took a deep breath. "I've become engaged." Silence. "You what?" "To a witch." The Queen stood so suddenly that the chair nearly fell backward. "A witch, Lawrence. What nonsense are you talking about? You cannot possibly marry a witch. Do you even realize what the court will—" Lawrence quietly interrupted. "Mother." He leaned close enough that only she could hear. "She healed father." Everything stopped. The Queen stared at him. "What?" "His illness, it's gone. He can stand again." Her eyes widened. Lawrence placed one finger against his lips. "No one can know, not yet. She specifically asked father to keep pretending he's still ill. If this secret spreads, her entire plan may fail." The Queen's anger slowly disappeared, replaced by confusion, curiosity. "Where is she now?" "My room." The Queen looked at him. "Your room." Lawrence cleared his throat. It seemed practical. She almost laughed. "So my son really has changed." Then she straightened her dress. "I'd like to meet her. I'll go alone. You stay here." "Mother." She looked directly into his eyes. For the first time in years, she saw something there. Not duty, not responsibility. Interest. Real interest. A smile slowly appeared. "Don't worry. I'm not going to chase away your precious witch. I simply wish to meet the woman who managed to steal my son's attention." A few minutes later, the Queen stood before Lawrence's chambers. She took one slow breath, then entered. She had imagined many things. Someone frightening, someone arrogant, someone whose presence would fill the room with dark magic. Instead, a young woman stood beside the window, freshly bathed, long black hair cascading over a simple white dress, golden eyes shimmering beneath the afternoon light, far more beautiful than the Queen had expected. The moment Elvira noticed her, she gracefully lowered her head. "Welcome, Queen Mother." The title caught the Queen slightly off guard. "So, you're the one who wishes to marry my son?" "Yes, Your Majesty." Elvira lifted her head. A gentle smile rested on her lips. The Queen narrowed her eyes. "Why are you smiling?" Elvira answered honestly. "I've just realized where Prince Lawrence inherited those gentle eyes." The Queen snorted. "My eyes aren't gentle. Those sweet words won't fool me." Elvira's smile only deepened. "No, your words are sharp. You are trying very hard to intimidate me. But your eyes tell a different story." The Queen remained silent. "You aren't worried because I'm a witch. You're worried because you're his mother. You want to know whether I'm worthy of standing beside your son." Something inside the Queen softened. Elvira had seen through her immediately, without accusation, without mockery, only understanding. They spoke for what felt like a long time. About Lawrence, about the kingdom, about people, about witches. Little by little, every prejudice the Queen had carried into the room quietly disappeared. Finally, before the conversation ended, Elvira stood, then looked directly into the Queen Mother's eyes. "I will make your son the greatest king this kingdom has ever known. Not because he lacks the ability. He has more than enough." A brief silence followed. "The problem is that his heart is too clean. Men like him often mistake snakes for loyal companions." Her golden eyes grew colder. "So, if venomous snakes gather around him, I will be the one who cuts off their heads. I'll bear that sin, so he never has to." For the first time since entering the room, the Queen Mother smiled, not politely, not formally, but like a mother who had finally found someone she could trust with her son. The Queen Mother had only just left when another knock came at the door. "Come in." Lawrence stepped inside. His gaze immediately found Elvira. For a brief moment, he simply stared. She had changed into a simple ivory nightdress. Her long black hair was still slightly damp from her bath. The room carried the faint scent of vanilla and fresh flowers. His heartbeat betrayed him again. Elvira noticed. "What?" Lawrence smiled awkwardly. "Nothing. I just wasn't expecting you to look like this." She laughed softly. "I'll pretend that's a compliment." He walked toward her until only a single step remained between them. Then, he gently cupped her face with both hands. She didn't flinch. Instead, she leaned into his palms as though it were the most natural thing in the world. "I hope my mother didn't make things difficult." Elvira slowly shook her head. "Not at all. I think she loves you very much." Lawrence smiled. "She does." He hesitated before speaking again. "I know we're sharing a room now, but I don't want you to feel pressured. I don't intend to do anything that makes you uncomfortable." Elvira looked into his eyes. "There is no need to worry. We have plenty of time. I'm not uncomfortable. When we're both ready, everything will happen naturally." She smiled playfully. "But I wouldn't mind one kiss." Lawrence chuckled. "I was hoping you'd say that." He leaned forward slowly, giving her every chance to step away. She never did. Their lips met gently, soft, unhurried. A kiss filled with curiosity. When they separated, neither spoke for several seconds. Later that night, they lay beneath the same blanket. Lawrence stretched one arm toward her. "My arm." She looked at him curiously. "Your pillow." A smile appeared on her lips. "Is that an official royal custom?" "It is now." She laughed and rested her head against his shoulder. The room became quiet. Only the sound of their breathing remained. After a while, Elvira asked, "Does Tristan have someone he loves?" Lawrence looked down at her. The question surprised him. "Why?" "I'd like to know your family better. That's all." He nodded. "He does." Father postponed announcing their engagement. My own succession hadn't been settled because of Father's illness, so it wouldn't have been appropriate. Elvira remained silent. "What is she like?" Lawrence thought for a moment. "Beautiful, elegant, from one of the highest noble families. Long blonde hair, blue eyes, very intelligent." As he continued describing her, a faint pain stirred inside Elvira's chest. Not hers. The remaining fragment of the original Elvira's soul. The memory of betrayal. Of dying while watching that woman stand beside Tristan. Karma quietly closed her eyes. "I understand," she whispered. "Thank you." Then smiled gently. "Good night." Just before closing her eyes, she added, "When you wake tomorrow, please ask Queen Mother to meet us in your father's chamber. There are things your family needs to hear." Morning arrived. Lawrence instinctively reached toward the other side of the bed. Empty. He immediately sat up. A maid bowed as he stepped outside. "Your Highness." Lady Elvira went to the royal gardens. Morning dew still rested upon the flowers. Elvira slowly walked between rows of blooming roses. She already knew exactly where she wanted to be. This garden had been Tristan's favorite place, which meant, sooner or later, he would come. Footsteps, right on time. "I don't believe we've met." A warm male voice spoke behind her. "You must be our guest." Without turning around, Elvira answered calmly, "I am." "I wasn't told we had such a beautiful guest." "And whose guest might you be?" Only then, she slowly turned. Golden eyes met blue ones. for a heartbeat. Neither moved. Tristan forgot to breathe. She was beautiful, far beyond what he'd imagined. Elegant, composed, completely unlike any noblewoman he'd ever met. Then Elvira smiled. Why? Your family's guest, of course. Brother-in-law. Tristan blinked. Then realization struck him. You're the woman Lawrence brought yesterday. I am. His gaze slowly drifted toward her eyes. Golden. You're a witch. Yes. She inclined her head politely. Elvira, the golden-eyed witch of the western forest, and your older brother's fiancée. For the first time in years, Tristan completely lost control of his expression. The witch, the one he'd searched for, the one who should have been standing beside him, was standing beside Lawrence instead. A strange feeling settled deep inside his chest. Not jealousy, something colder, something possessive, as though a treasure he had already considered his had somehow been taken away before he could claim it. Elvira offered one final smile. If you'll excuse me, I have an important meeting. She walked past him without another glance, leaving Tristan standing alone among the roses, watching her disappear, unable to understand why he suddenly couldn't take his eyes off her. A few minutes later, the doors to the king's private council chamber opened. The king, the queen, Lawrence, all three were already waiting. Elvira stepped inside. My apologies. I wished to walk through the gardens for a while. No harm done, the king replied. The room grew quiet. Every pair of eyes settled on her. Elvira looked at each of them in turn. Then her expression became completely serious. What I'm about to say must never leave this room. The atmosphere instantly changed. She looked directly at the king. Your Majesty, you were never sick. A heavy silence fell. Then, you were poisoned. The room fell into complete silence. Poisoned. The king's voice was barely above a whisper. Lawrence's expression hardened. The queen instinctively took a step closer to her husband. What do you mean? Elvira remained calm. When I removed the poison from your Majesty's body, I examined it. It wasn't a disease. It was poison. The king's eyes widened. Impossible. Our royal physicians examined me countless times. They never found anything. They wouldn't, Elvira answered quietly. It was designed not to be found. She slowly walked toward the large window. This poison doesn't kill immediately. It weakens. It exhausts. It steals life little by little. So slowly that everyone mistakes it for illness. Lawrence suddenly stepped toward her. Wait. His expression changed. You said, you removed the poison. He looked directly into her eyes. Did you absorb it yourself? Is it inside your body now? His voice carried genuine concern. Can it hurt you? The room became quiet. Elvira looked at him, then smiled. A warm smile. One meant only for him. You don't need to worry. This is my nature. There isn't a poison in this kingdom, or even in this world, that can harm me. She gently reached out and brushed the back of his hand with her fingertips. So, don't worry. For some reason, those few words eased the tension in Lawrence's chest. The king interrupted. So, someone has been poisoning me. Elvira nodded. Yes, but what's even more interesting is the speed. She slowly turned back toward the king. The poison wasn't meant to kill you quickly, but it wasn't meant to be harmless either. It was carefully controlled. Her golden eyes narrowed slightly, as though whoever poisoned you was waiting. The queen frowned. Waiting for what? Elvira looked around the room, then quietly asked, Don't you find everything a little too convenient? The king remained silent. She continued, Your Majesty suddenly becoming bedridden. the monster attacks along the northern border increasing. The one person capable of leading the army, being the first prince, and because of your illness, he couldn't be officially named crown prince. Silence, heavy silence. Elvira's voice became even quieter. So ask yourselves, if something unfortunate had happened, while Prince Lawrence was still fighting at the border, and your majesty had passed away, before naming an heir, who would benefit? No one answered. No one needed to. The implication alone was enough. The queen slowly lowered herself into a chair. Her hands trembled slightly. Lawrence clenched his fists. The king closed his eyes. For the first time, he allowed himself to consider something he had never wanted to imagine. Betrayal. Inside his own family. After several moments, Elvira broke the silence. For now, we shouldn't let the person behind this realize anything. She raised one hand. A faint golden light surrounded the king. The healthy color slowly disappeared from his face. His skin once again became pale. His breathing appeared weak. Even Lawrence was startled. You look exactly like before. Elvira nodded. That's the point. The less suspicious they become, the more careless they'll be. Then she reached into the small pouch hanging from her waist. She removed a tiny crystal the size of a fingernail. Transparent, almost invisible. She placed it in the king's hand. This is a gift. The king looked at it curiously. What does it do? You'll know. When the time comes. She gently closed his fingers around it. Until then, keep it with you. The king slowly nodded. I understand. Elvira looked at all three of them. The next step is simple. We announce our engagement and hold a royal ball. The queen looked surprised. A ball? Yes. But the true purpose will be announcing Prince Lawrence as the crown prince. She turned toward the king. We cannot wait any longer. The longer we delay, the more opportunities your enemy receives. The king slowly smiled. I agree. The queen quietly watched Elvira. Her mind drifted back to their conversation the previous evening. I will protect him from the snakes he cannot see. At first, she had believed Elvira was only speaking about Lawrence. Now, she realized. The young witch had already begun protecting all of them. For the first time in many years, the queen felt something she hadn't felt since Lawrence was born. Relief, perhaps. Our family was fortunate enough to meet her. Meanwhile, Prince Tristan stood alone inside his chambers. His jaw tightened. How long have they even known each other? Lawrence had returned from the border only days ago. Even if they had met there, it couldn't have been more than a week. Maybe 2. There's no way my brother loves her already. He slowly poured himself a glass of wine. Good. That means I still have time. His eyes darkened. No matter what it takes, I'll make her come to my side. If persuasion doesn't work, I'll find another way. He smiled faintly. Witches never fight one another over human affairs. Even if I searched for another witch, none of them would stand against the golden-eyed witch. I know that much. So, there is only one option. I need Elvira. 1 week later, the palace buzzed with excitement. News spread quickly. The engagement ball had been officially announced. Tristan immediately headed toward the king's chambers. He entered without delay. Father, I heard about the celebration. The king looked up weakly from his bed. Yes. Tristan forced a worried expression onto his face. How can they possibly organize such a grand event while you're still in this condition? You can barely leave your bed. Doesn't anyone care about your health? Why is my brother in such a hurry to marry? Can't this wait? The king smiled tiredly. It's all right. I'd like to see Lawrence begin his own family. While I still can. But father, I'm tired, Tristan. The king's voice remained gentle. If you'd like to stay, you may. I'm going to rest. He slowly closed his eyes. Minutes passed. 5, 10, 15. The room remained silent. Tristan carefully stood. He walked toward the bedside table. From inside his coat, he removed a tiny glass vial. 2 dark drops fell into the king's water. Plink, plink. A cold smile crossed his face. You're too stubborn. Old man, I asked politely. You should have listened. He placed the vial back into his pocket. After you drink this, you won't be opening your eyes for quite some time. And unfortunately, my dear brother's engagement ceremony will have to be postponed. Satisfied, he quietly left the room. The door clicked shut. Silence returned. Then, the king's eyes slowly opened, completely awake. The afternoon sun spilled through the windows of Lawrence's chambers. The room was quiet, peaceful, for the first time in years. Lawrence wished time would simply stop. Elvira sat beside him near the window. Their fingers were intertwined. Neither of them seemed eager to let go. Lawrence absent-mindedly brushed his thumb across the back of her hand. 2 more days. She looked at him. Until what? Our engagement ball. A small smile appeared on her lips. Are you nervous? He laughed. I think I should be asking you that. She tilted her head. I've already answered that. I am. Very. Lawrence raised an eyebrow. You are. She nodded without hesitation. Of course. I'm about to become engaged. To the man I wish to spend my life with. Her golden eyes met his. How could I not be excited? For a moment, Lawrence simply stared at her. He still wasn't used to how openly she spoke. Every feeling, every thought, every promise, nothing was hidden. She had warned him from the beginning. A witch understands words exactly as they are spoken. Perhaps that was why everything she said carried so much weight. He smiled softly. You really don't leave me any room to be more romantic than you. She laughed. I can try less. No. He shook his head immediately. Don't. I like this version of you. Silence settled comfortably between them. Lawrence found himself studying her face once again. Sometimes, he still wondered whether she was real, whether he'd somehow fallen asleep on the battlefield, and everything since then had been a dream. Because finding someone like Elvira felt impossible. Someone who frightened armies, yet smiled so gently. Someone powerful enough to destroy kingdoms, yet cared about the smallest emotions. How did I become this lucky? Without thinking, he leaned forward and kissed her forehead. I don't know what I did to deserve meeting you. Elvira smiled. Neither do I, but I'm glad you did. Knock, knock. A quiet sound interrupted the moment. Lawrence frowned. Come in. The door opened only slightly. One of the king's personal attendants stepped inside. He immediately bowed. Your Highness, my lady. The king requests your presence. His voice was unusually quiet. Then he added, he instructed me to bring you without anyone noticing. Lawrence's expression immediately changed. Without anyone noticing. He exchanged a glance with Elvira. She had already understood. Something had happened. Will come immediately. The attendant bowed once more. I'll lead the way. Instead of using the main corridors, the servant guided them through narrow passageways hidden behind the palace walls. Hardly anyone knew these routes existed. Not a single guard stopped them. Not a single servant saw them. The palace felt unnaturally quiet. Finally, they reached the king's private chamber. The attendant opened the door, then quietly disappeared. Inside, only 3 people were waiting. The king, the queen, and an atmosphere so heavy it almost felt difficult to breathe. Lawrence immediately stepped forward. Father, what happened? The king slowly looked up. His face remained pale beneath Elvira's illusion, but his eyes were colder than before. I saw him. Lawrence frowned. Saw who? The king reached toward the small table beside his bed. Resting there was a glass of water, untouched. I pretended to be asleep, just as Lady Elvira suggested. The room became silent. The king's fingers tightened around the glass. After nearly 15 minutes, someone approached my bedside. The queen quietly lowered her gaze. She had already heard the story, yet hearing it again still hurt. The king's voice became heavier. The king's voice became heavier. He took a small glass vial from his pocket. He poured 2 drops into my drinking water. Lawrence's breathing stopped. No. The king slowly nodded. He believed I was asleep. He even spoke to me, his expression filled with sorrow. He called me an old man, he said. You should have listened while I asked nicely. Silence. No one dared interrupt. Then, the king closed his eyes for a brief moment. When he opened them again, they looked years older. It was Tristan. The words echoed through the room. Lawrence froze. Father, no. There has to be some mistake. My brother wouldn't. He would, Elvira answered quietly. Her voice wasn't cruel, only certain. Lawrence looked toward her. She stepped closer. This confirms everything. The poison, the timing, the monster attacks. It was never coincidence. The queen covered her mouth. The king gave a bitter smile. I raised 2 princes, but only one of them remembered what it meant to be my son. Silence swallowed the room once more. Then Elvira slowly looked at each of them. The good news is that he still believes his plan is working. Her golden eyes became sharp, and people who believe they've already won are the easiest to expose. A faint smile appeared on her lips. So now, we let the snake walk willingly into its own trap. The palace had never felt so quiet. Tomorrow, the engagement ball would begin. Yet there wasn't a trace of celebration inside Lawrence's heart. He sat beside the window, staring at the gardens below. His hands rested silently on his knees. Elvira walked over without saying a word. She gently took one of his hands into both of hers. He looked up. Did you know? She already understood what he meant. Yes, I did. Lawrence lowered his eyes. You knew Tristan was poisoning father. I did. Silence. Why didn't you tell me? Elvira answered softly. Because knowing something and proving it are not the same. If I had simply accused your brother, would you have believed me? Lawrence couldn't answer. You love your brother. You trusted him, and that wasn't wrong. It simply meant you deserved proof. She squeezed his hand gently. I wanted you to see it with your own eyes, so that no one could ever convince you it was a misunderstanding. Lawrence closed his eyes. It still hurts. I know. I wish I could take that pain away from you. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Eventually, Elvira broke the silence. We still need more time. If we expose Tristan now, everyone helping him will disappear. We'll lose the chance to uncover the rest. Lawrence looked at her. You think there are others? I'm certain. His mother, his fiancé's family, and I'm sure there are several powerful nobles. She slowly intertwined their fingers. We only get one chance. So when we move, everyone falls together. Her golden eyes became colder than before. I'll become the blade. I'll cut away every thorn standing in your path, so that we reach our happy ending. Lawrence smiled sadly. You really believe we'll have one? She answered without hesitation. I do. Then, she stepped closer, resting her forehead gently against his. Lawrence, no matter what you see, no matter what you hear, never doubt one thing. My heart belongs only to you. There may come a day when something I do makes you question my loyalty. If that day arrives, remember this moment. I chose you before anyone else, and there will never be another man for me." Lawrence looked into her golden eyes. He didn't fully understand what she meant, but he believed every word. Without saying anything, he simply wrapped his arms around her. She returned the embrace. Outside, rain quietly began falling over the palace. That same night, Prince Tristan couldn't sleep. Again and again, the same dream. Elvira smiling at him, Elvira reaching for his hand, Elvira kissing him, Elvira whispering his name. Every dream ended the same way. She belonged to him. He woke with a sharp breath. Damn it. He ran a hand through his hair. Why couldn't he stop thinking about her? Why did seeing her beside Lawrence feel wrong? The following afternoon, Prince Tristan sent an invitation. Lady Elvira accepted. She entered his private study alone. Tristan welcomed her with his usual elegant smile. "Thank you for coming." Elvira inclined her head. "You wished to speak with me." "Did." He motioned toward a chair. "I heard father's condition still hasn't improved. It wouldn't surprise anyone if tomorrow's engagement were postponed. I only hope you won't be too disappointed." Elvira smiled politely. "I'll accept whatever decision His Majesty makes." Tristan studied her carefully. "You seem remarkably calm. I've learned that worrying rarely changes the future. Perhaps." He leaned back in his chair. "Tell me, are you truly certain about my brother? You've only known each other for such a short time." "My brother has never shown much interest in women. He has very little experience with relationships." His smile grew softer. "Are you certain he'll be able to give you everything you're looking for?" Silence lingered between them. Elvira looked at him for several seconds, long enough for Tristan to wonder whether he had struck a nerve. Then she smiled, a slow, almost a mysterious smile. "Your Highness, you seem unusually interested in my engagement." Tristan chuckled. "I simply don't wish to see a remarkable woman regret her decision, especially one as extraordinary as you." Their eyes met. For a heartbeat, neither of them looked away. Then Elvira slowly walked toward him. One step, then another. She stopped close enough that Tristan could catch the faint scent of vanilla lingering around her. "You flatter me. I rarely flatter people." "No, no." His blue eyes searched hers. "If circumstances had been different, perhaps I would have wished to meet you first." For the briefest moment, Elvira's smile softened. As fate often reminds us, timing can be cruel. Tristan's heartbeat quickened. "So, you've never wondered? What might have happened if we'd met before Lawrence?" Elvira lowered her gaze for just an instant, then looked back into his eyes. "I suppose everyone wonders about roads they never walked." The answer was neither yes nor no, exactly ambiguous enough. Hope quietly settled inside Tristan's heart. He stood, closing the remaining distance between them. So perhaps the story isn't completely finished yet. Elvira held his gaze. There wasn't the slightest trace of panic or rejection. Instead, a faint smile appeared once more. "The future is a very unpredictable thing, Your Highness." She reached out, straightened the collar of his jacket with calm. The simple gesture sent an unexpected thrill through Tristan. Then she stepped back. "But there is one thing I know." "What is that?" She smiled. "When people become too certain, they stop paying attention. And that's usually when fate surprises them." Tristan couldn't quite understand what she meant, but somehow he found himself smiling. "So, I still have reason to hope." Elvira tilted her head. "Hope? isn't something I'd ever take away from another person. She gave him a graceful bow. If you'll excuse me, I promised Prince Lawrence I'd join him for tea. She turned toward the door. Just before leaving, she glanced back over her shoulder. And Your Highness, try not to think about me too much. Her smile lingered only for a heartbeat. Then she disappeared beyond the doorway. The study fell silent. Tristan remained standing exactly where she had left him. His fingers unconsciously brushed the collar she had straightened. A slow smile spread across his face. She didn't reject me. She hesitated, which means I still have a chance. Outside the room, Elvira's smile disappeared the instant the door closed. Her golden eyes became completely emotionless. Good, she whispered to herself. The deeper you choose to fall, the harder the ground will be. The palace had never been brighter. Crystal chandeliers illuminated the grand ballroom. Hundreds of nobles filled the hall. Musicians quietly tuned their instruments. Everyone waited. Today, the engagement of the first prince would finally be announced. Meanwhile, Lawrence stood outside Elvira's chambers. He took a slow breath, then knocked. Come in. The door opened, and for a moment, his world stopped. Elvira stood before the mirror. Her long black hair flowed down her back like silk. The elegant midnight blue gown embraced her figure perfectly, while delicate golden embroidery shimmered like stars beneath the candlelight. But none of it compared to her eyes, those brilliant golden eyes. Lawrence forgot how to breathe. Elvira noticed immediately. Lawrence, he slowly walked toward her, never taking his eyes off her, until he stood directly before her. Without saying a word, he gently cupped her face, then placed a soft kiss upon her lips. When he pulled away, he smiled. I've seen many beautiful things in my life. He brushed a loose strand of hair behind her ear. But nothing has ever been more beautiful than you. A faint blush appeared across Elvira's cheeks. She smiled, then kissed him once more. This witch belongs to you. Lawrence laughed quietly. I'll gladly accept that responsibility. They remained together for another quiet moment. Then Elvira asked, how is the investigation progressing? The warmth in Lawrence's eyes faded, replaced by sadness. He still wasn't accustomed to thinking of Tristan as a traitor. We're almost finished. We've collected nearly everything. The evidence against Scarlett's father, the nobles working with them, the financial records, the secret correspondence. He slowly exhaled. A little longer? In a few weeks, everything will be ready. Elvira gently squeezed his hand. We're almost there. He nodded. Thanks to you. Downstairs, the ballroom slowly filled with conversation. Prince Tristan stood beside Scarlett. She quietly observed him. Something was different. His attention wasn't on the guests, nor the musicians, nor even her. His eyes continuously wandered across the ballroom, searching, waiting. Finally, Scarlett spoke. Are you looking for someone? Tristan didn't answer immediately. She continued with a polite smile. I'm just as disappointed as you are that we never found the witch. I suppose we'll have to adjust our plans. Still, nothing. It was as though he hadn't even heard her. Scarlett frowned ever so slightly. That wasn't like him. Before she could speak again, a trumpet echoed through the ballroom. The conversation stopped. A royal herald stepped forward. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome His Royal Highness, the first prince, Prince Lawrence, and his fiancée, Lady Elvira. Every eye turned toward the grand staircase. Lawrence appeared first, then Elvira. A collective gasp spread throughout the ballroom. She descended gracefully beside him. Elegant, composed, radiant. For Tristan, everything else disappeared. The music, the guests, the lights, even Scarlet standing beside him. His eyes found only one person. Elvira, beautiful. The word escaped his thoughts before he realized it. Scarlet slowly turned toward him. She followed his gaze, then looked back at Tristan. He wasn't blinking. He wasn't listening. He wasn't even pretending to pay attention to anything else. He was simply staring at Lady Elvira. For the first time, an uncomfortable feeling settled inside Scarlet's chest. Whispers quickly spread throughout the ballroom. So that's the Golden Night Witch. She's far more beautiful than I imagined. I heard she's the one engaged to the first prince. But where is His Majesty? Do you think he disapproves? I heard his illness became worse. Perhaps he couldn't attend. The murmurs grew louder. Then, the royal herald raised his voice once more, presenting His Majesty, the King, and Her Majesty, the Queen. The ballroom instantly fell silent. Every noble stood. Every knight bowed. At the top of the staircase, the king appeared, walking, steady, beside the queen. For a heartbeat, Tristan forgot how to breathe. His eyes widened. Impossible. He had poisoned the water himself. He had watched the drops fall. The king should have been unconscious, unable to stand, unable to leave his bed. Yet there he was, walking down the staircase as though nothing had happened. A cold chill ran down Tristan's spine. For the first time since beginning his plans, something had happened that he could not explain. The entire ballroom fell silent. Prince Tristan couldn't take his eyes off the king. Impossible. He had watched the poison fall into the glass himself. His father should have been unconscious, unable to stand, unable to leave his bed. Yet, there he was, walking, smiling, alive, without even realizing it. Tristan took several hurried steps forward. Father. The king smiled warmly. Tristan, I didn't know you'd recovered enough to walk. A hint of relief appeared on Tristan's face, or rather, the perfect imitation of relief. The king chuckled. Neither did I. One of the royal physicians prepared a new medicine. It seems my body responded rather well. I'm fortunate. Tristan forced a smile. I truly am happy to hear that. Inside, his thoughts were racing. Medicine? Impossible. No physician could have neutralized that poison. Then, what happened? His eyes instinctively drifted toward Elvira. She was quietly standing beside Lawrence, watching, almost as though she already knew exactly what he was thinking. A chill ran down Tristan's spine. From across the ballroom, Scarlet observed everything. She noticed something no one else seemed to. Although Tristan was speaking to the king, his eyes kept wandering, again and again, toward Lady Elvira. Scarlet slowly tightened her grip on her fan. Why? Tristan finally approached Lawrence and Elvira. He wore his usual charming smile. Brother, my congratulations. Then he looked toward Elvira. My lady, you've stolen the attention of the entire ballroom. I doubt anyone here has ever witnessed such beauty. Elvira inclined her head gracefully. You're too kind, Your Highness. Lawrence smiled faintly. I've been trying to tell her that all afternoon. A flicker of irritation passed through Tristan's eyes, only for an instant. Then it disappeared behind another perfect smile. The musicians began playing. The herald raised his voice. The first dance belongs to the newly engaged couple. Lawrence extended his hand. May I? Elvira placed her hand in his. I thought you'd never ask. The ballroom slowly opened around them. As the music filled the hall, Lawrence gently guided her into the dance. You look nervous. I'm trying not to step on your dress. Elvira laughed. I'd survive. I wouldn't. She smiled. So dramatic. For you, He leaned slightly closer. I don't think I could ever be dramatic enough. She looked up at him. Their eyes met. Everything else disappeared. The music, the nobles, the whispers. Only the two of them remained. At one point, Lawrence gently kissed the top of her head. So many people are watching. I know. Doesn't it bother you? Not at all. Good, because I intend to keep doing that. She laughed again. The sound was soft, warm, natural. Watching from across the ballroom, Tristan felt his jaw tighten. Why? Why did seeing them together bother him so much? Every smile, every glance, every touch felt strangely irritating, as though something that should have belonged to him didn't. Scarlett noticed every single one of Tristan's expressions, and for the first time, jealousy quietly settled inside her heart. When the dance finally ended, Scarlett walked toward Elvira. A flawless smile rested upon her face. Lady Elvira? Elvira turned politely. Lady Scarlett, I've been hoping we'd have the opportunity to speak. The pleasure is mine. Scarlett smiled sweetly. I only wished to say, I hope palace etiquette won't be too overwhelming. I've heard you've spent your entire life in the Western Forest. I imagine adapting to noble society won't be easy. Her words sounded gentle, concerned, almost friendly, but the hidden meaning was obvious. You don't belong here. Elvira smiled. I assure you, you needn't worry about me. My manners and my understanding of honor are more than sufficient. Scarlett blinked. I'm not sure I understand. Elvira stepped a little closer, just enough that only Scarlett could hear her next words. If the etiquette of this empire teaches women to send their own fiancé into another woman's bed simply to obtain what they desire, then I'm afraid I was raised very differently. Scarlett's expression froze. Elvira's smile never faded. Unlike you, what belongs to me will always remain mine. Scarlett's heartbeat quickened. How? Before she could finish, Elvira gently interrupted. I'm afraid tonight isn't your evening. It's mine. She inclined her head gracefully. I sincerely hope you enjoy the rest of the celebration. Then, she walked away, leaving Scarlett completely speechless. Moments later, the king slowly rose from his seat. The entire ballroom fell silent once more. My friends, my nobles, my people, his voice echoed throughout the hall. Tonight, we celebrate not only an engagement. He looked proudly toward Lawrence and Elvira. I congratulate my eldest son, Prince Lawrence, and from this day forward, I proudly welcome Lady Elvira as my daughter. Applause erupted throughout the ballroom. The king raised one hand. But there is another announcement. Instant silence returned. The king drew a slow breath. By my royal authority, let every noble present bear witness. From this day onward, Prince Lawrence is officially the crown prince of this kingdom. He turned toward Elvira, and Lady Elvira shall stand beside him as the crown princess. This is my royal decree. For a heartbeat, the ballroom remained completely silent. Then, thunderous applause shook the palace. Everyone bowed, everyone cheered, everyone, except one man. Prince Tristan stood frozen. His smile had vanished. For the first time in his life, he watched the throne move farther away from him and slip into his brother's hands. The celebration eventually came to an end. One by one, the nobles took their leave, their polite smiles never quite reaching their eyes. No one openly questioned the king's decision. Not here, not tonight. The first prince had been named crown prince, and Lady Elvira now stood as crown princess. The royal decree had already been sealed. Yet beneath the surface, unease lingered. Among those who had supported Prince Tristan, the atmosphere was especially tense. No one dared to speak of it, but they all felt it. The balance had shifted. Prince Tristan returned to his chambers. The moment the doors closed behind him, the composed smile he had worn all evening vanished. "Explain." His voice was calm to calm. The men kneeling before him lowered their heads further. "I entrusted all of you with watching the palace," he continued, his tones steady but sharp. "So tell me, how did my father recover? How he decided the crown, my brother, without you noticing?" Tristan's fingers curled slowly into fists. "None of you noticed anything," he pressed. "No strange visitors, no suspicious physicians, no unusual movements." Still nothing. His fist came down hard against the desk. The crystal ink bottle toppled, spilling dark ink across the polished surface. "Useless. I asked you to be my eyes, my ears, and yet you saw nothing." His breathing grew heavier as frustration seeped through his composure. "Find out," he ordered. "I don't care how. Question every servant. Watch every physician. I want answers." The men bowed quickly. "Yes, Your Highness." They left in haste, leaving the room in silence. Only one person remained. Scarlet. She closed the door quietly behind her, her expression colder than usual. "So," she began. Tristan glanced at her. "What?" She crossed her arms, studying him. "What exactly are you trying to do?" He frowned. "I don't understand." "I think you do." Her gaze sharpened. "We couldn't find the witch. You've decided to pursue your own brother's fiancée." The words hung in the air. "I can't think of another explanation." Tristan looked away. Scarlet let out a bitter laugh. "So I was right. You've changed. And you don't even deny it." "Don't misunderstand," he said quietly. "I'm only thinking about the kingdom." She stepped closer, her eyes unwavering. "No, you're not." A brief silence passed. "You're thinking about her?" For the first time, Tristan's patience snapped. "Enough." Scarlet held his gaze for a moment longer. Then, without another word, she turned and left. Unable to settle his thoughts, Tristan wandered into the palace gardens. The night air was cool, and the moon cast a soft silver glow over the palace grounds. As he passed beneath the eastern wing, his steps slowed, then stopped. Above him, on a softly lit balcony, Lawrence and Elvira stood together. A bottle of wine rested between them. Their laughter drifted down, quiet and intimate, as if the rest of the world had faded away. Tristan watched in silence. Lawrence reached out, gently brushing a strand of hair from Elvira's face. She smiled, her expression warm and unguarded. Then, without hesitation, he leaned in and kissed her, softly, tenderly, as though it were the most natural thing in the world. Tristan couldn't look away. Something twisted painfully in his chest, tightening with every passing second. His nails dug into his palms, but he barely noticed. By the time he finally forced himself to turn away, one truth had settled firmly in his mind. He could no longer stand by and simply watch. Late that night, Tristan sat alone at his desk. A blank sheet of paper lay before him. For a long time, he did nothing but stare at it, lost in thought. Then, slowly, he picked up his pen. "Lady Elvira, I have tried to ignore these feelings. I told myself they would fade with time, that they were nothing more than a passing illusion. But with each passing day, they have only grown stronger. Every night, I find myself thinking of you, of your voice, of your smile, of a future that somehow feels as though it should have been ours. I can no longer pretend these feelings do not exist. If there is even the smallest place for me in your heart, please, Tristan." He folded the letter carefully and sealed it. Then he sat there, staring at it, as if weighing the consequences of what he had just done. Meanwhile, Lawrence and Elvira had returned to their chambers. Lawrence removed his ceremonial coat, setting it aside before turning to her. "There's something that's been bothering me," he admitted. Elvira looked at him. "What is it?" He hesitated for a moment. "The way Tristan looks at you." His expression tightened slightly. "I don't like it. It feels wrong." Elvira stepped closer, her gaze softening. She gently cupped his face in her hands. "My love," she murmured, "remember what I told you. No matter what you see, no matter what you hear, I chose you. My heart belongs only to you. There is nothing in this world that could change that." The tension in Lawrence's shoulders slowly eased. A faint smile appeared on his lips. "I know," he said quietly. "I just needed to hear you say it again." Elvira smiled in return and leaned in, pressing a gentle kiss to his lips. He kissed her back, this time without hesitation. Neither of them pulled away. The distance between them faded, replaced by something warmer, steadier. Outside, the palace lay silent beneath the moonlight. Inside, words were no longer needed. Only presence, only trust. And as the candles burned lower into the night, the future they had promised each other no longer felt distant. It had already begun. The following morning, before the heavy palace doors had fully opened, a letter arrived in Elvira's chamber. The seal had already been broken. Elvira quietly unfolded the parchment. She didn't need to read the signature. She already knew who had written it. Tristan. Her eyes moved slowly across the lines. Every word, every sentence, echoed with a deeply rooted obsession, longing, fixation, and that unshakable belief that fate had wronged him. When she reached the final line, she folded the parchment slowly. A faint, almost mocking smile appeared at the corner of her lips. "So, no matter how many lives you live, you still can't bear watching your brother keep what you believe should be yours." Without hesitation, she placed the letter into the fireplace. The flames devoured it within seconds, as if it had never existed. Then Elvira took a fresh sheet of paper, picked up her pen, and began to write. Over the following week, a silent war unfolded between two separate rooms of the palace. Every morning, a new letter arrived from Tristan. Every evening, a reply was sent from Elvira. But Elvira never once wrote, "I love you." She never made a promise. Instead, she wove a delicate uncertainty into every sentence, clear enough to keep hope alive, but vague enough to never reveal the truth. Some paths only reveal their end once they are walked. The future changes far more easily than people believe. There are truths that cannot yet be spoken. To others, these words meant almost nothing, but to Tristan, each one was a sign. Every line became another reason to believe, to wait, to hope. He convinced himself that beneath Elvira's calm expression, there was hesitation, and where there was hesitation, there was opportunity. He began sleeping less, smiling more. His life gradually revolved around the arrival of the next letter. "I won't make you witness what comes first." She rested one hand against his chest. "When the time comes, bring the soldiers. Wait outside the temple, and only enter after you hear my signal." Lawrence searched her eyes. "Promise me you'll come back." "I promise." She leaned forward and kissed his forehead. "I always keep my promises." At almost the same time, Prince Tristan prepared himself. A dark hood concealed his face. His heart had never beaten this quickly. "Tonight, she'll finally tell me the truth. Perhaps she's realized she chose the wrong brother." He felt hope. Elsewhere, Scarlet fastened her own cloak. A servant had delivered Tristan's letter only hours earlier. A faint smile crossed her lips. So, ignoring him finally worked. He came back to his senses after all. She looked into the mirror. No matter what you do, Tristan, you'll never belong to anyone except me. The abandoned temple stood exactly as it had years before. Silent, forgotten, haunted by memories no one else could see. Two hooded figures arrived almost simultaneously. Without recognizing one another, Tristan hurried forward. He wrapped his arms around the figure before him. Elvira, I can't believe we're finally here. The hood slowly lowered. Scarlet stared at him in disbelief. Tristan, his entire body froze. What, you? Why are you here? Before either of them could speak again, a third pair of footsteps echoed through the ruined temple. Elvira stepped into the moonlight. For a brief moment, a sharp pain spread through her chest, not hers. The last lingering fragment of the original Elvira. This was where she had died, where she had been betrayed. Karma gently placed a hand over her own heart. Just a little longer. You'll finally be free. Tristan immediately stumbled toward her. What is the meaning of this? What are you trying to do? The letters? You wrote every one of them. You kept giving me hope. Elvira looked at him quietly. Then, she slowly raised one hand. Kneel. Golden manna exploded through the ruined temple. An overwhelming pressure descended upon both Tristan and Scarlet. Their knees slammed against the cold stone floor. Exactly where Elvira had once bled to death. Scarlet struggled desperately. What is this? I can't move. Tristan gritted his teeth. Release us. Elvira descended the broken stone steps one by one. Each step echoed through the abandoned temple. When she finally stopped before them, she looked down at Tristan with calm golden eyes. This is where you should have been from the very beginning. She slowly crouched until they were at eye level. You've been wondering about the dreams. The dreams where you found me. The dreams where I smiled at you. The dreams where I trusted you. The dreams where you held my hand. Tristan's breathing became uneven. How? Do you know about them? A faint smile appeared on Elvira's lips. Because they happened. Silence. They aren't fantasies. They're fragments of another destiny, another lifetime. A lifetime where you found Elvira before Lawrence ever could. A lifetime where she believed every word you said. She trusted you. She loved you. She gave you everything. Her magic, her heart, her future. Scarlet stared at Elvira in horror. Tristan couldn't even blink. And what did you give her in return? Elvira asked softly. You poisoned your own father. You stole your brother's future. You placed a crown upon your own head. You stood beside Scarlet, while the woman who had given you everything lay dying at your feet. The ruined temple became completely silent. Tristan's lips trembled. No. I would never. You already did. There wasn't anger in Elvira's voice, only certainty. That's why those dreams felt real. They were never dreams. They were memories. You simply forgot them. Tristan stared at the ground beneath him. The very place where another version of himself had murdered the only person who had ever loved him unconditionally. His entire body shook. He could no longer tell which memories belonged to this life and which belonged to the other. Finally, he looked back at Elvira. Then why? If you hated me, why did you answer my letters? Why did you keep giving me hope? You could have rejected me from the beginning. Scarlet immediately turned toward Elvira. Letters. You've been exchanging letters. Her face twisted with disbelief. So, you betrayed your own fiancé. For the first time, Elvira laughed. A quiet, beautiful laugh. So that's what you believed? She slowly shook her head. My fiancé knew about every single letter. From the very first one, both Tristan and Scarlet froze. I hid nothing from Lawrence. Not one sentence, not one reply, not one meeting. My heart, my soul, my entire existence have belonged to him from the very beginning. She looked at Tristan. You never understood the difference between love and possession. You thought answering your letters meant I belonged to you. You thought kindness was affection. You mistook your own obsession for destiny. She slowly stood. I only allowed you to continue, so that when you finally fell, there would be no one left to catch you. Silence. Then Elvira looked around the ruined temple. This place is where Elvira died. She died believing that she had never truly been loved. Her golden eyes slowly returned to Tristan. So I wanted you to lose everything in the exact same place. She turned toward the entrance. You were probably wondering why I invited you here. She looked back over her shoulder, because outside, the crown prince is waiting, along with the royal guard. Every witness, every payment, every forged order, every piece of treason. We have all of it. You poisoned the king. You conspired with corrupt nobles. You plotted against the crown prince. And now, there is nowhere left to run. Scarlet desperately shook her head. No, I was supposed to become queen. This isn't how our story ends. Tristan ignored her completely. His eyes remained fixed on Elvira. One final question escaped his lips. Ever have a chance? Elvira remained silent for several long seconds. Then, she smiled, a smile completely free of love, completely free of hatred. Only truth remained. No, not in this life. Not after what you chose. I would never choose a boy. After finding a man, my heart, my future, my every tomorrow belongs to Lawrence. It always has, and it always will. Without another glance, she walked toward the temple doors. The massive entrance slowly opened. The sound of armored boots echoed through the ruins. Royal guards flooded inside. Behind them, standing beneath the fading evening light, was Crown Prince Lawrence. He looked at his brother only once, then quietly said, "It's over, Tristan." And for the first time, Tristan finally understood. He hadn't lost Elvira that night. He had lost her. The moment he chose ambition over love. The day of the execution arrived beneath a gray sky. The kingdom had already learned the truth. The attempted assassination of the king, the conspiracy against the crown prince, the corruption within the noble houses. Every crime had been laid bare. Every piece of evidence had been presented before the royal court. No one protested the verdict. Inside the royal prison, Prince Tristan sat alone. The chains around his wrists barely registered anymore. His mind was elsewhere. Again and again, the memories returned, not dreams. Memories. He remembered meeting Elvira in the western forest. He remembered her smile, her trust, the nights they had spent talking beneath the stars. He remembered using her, manipulating her, watching her hand him the throne. He remembered poisoning his own father. Standing beside Scarlet after placing the crown upon his own head. And finally, he remembered the ruined temple, Elvira's eyes, the disbelief, the blood, the moment he had killed the only person who had ever loved him without asking for anything in return. What have I done? His voice broke for the first time. Every day, he requested the same thing. I want to see Lady Elvira. The guards always gave him the same answer. You are a convicted traitor. You have no right to request an audience with the future queen. The answer never changed. Neither did the silence that followed. Outside, thousands gathered in the capital. The execution platform stood at the center of the square. The king, the queen, the crown prince, and Lady Elvira watched from the royal platform. Lawrence quietly held Elvira's hand. She gently squeezed his fingers. You don't have to watch. He remained silent for a long moment, then slowly shook his head. No, my duty doesn't end simply because the criminal is my brother. He looked toward the execution platform. No one, not even my own family, can be forgiven for betraying the kingdom. Elvira looked at him with quiet pride. You'll become a great king. Lawrence smiled faintly. Only because you'll be beside me. The sentence brought a gentle smile to her lips. The sentence was carried out. The square fell silent. The chapter of treason had finally come to an end. Elvira slowly closed her eyes. Inside her heart, she felt something she hadn't felt since awakening in this world: peace. Years passed. The old king eventually left the world peacefully. This time, surrounded by his family, not by betrayal, the crown prince ascended the throne. From that day forward, he became known as King Lawrence. Beside him stood the woman the kingdom had once feared, Queen Elvira, the golden-eyed witch. At first, the people had been afraid of her. Over time, they came to know her, the queen who healed the sick, the queen who protected the weak, the queen who never broke a promise. Together, Lawrence and Elvira led the kingdom into an era of peace unlike any in its history. Years later, the palace echoed with children's laughter. Two little figures raced through the royal gardens while their parents watched from a nearby balcony. Lawrence smiled as one of the children reached for Elvira's hand. She laughed, the same warm laugh that had once stolen his heart. Growing older never frightened either of them, because every year they shared was another year they had once believed impossible. And when, many decades later, Lawrence finally closed his eyes for the last time, she rested peacefully beside the man she had chosen. Her hand remained in Lawrence's until his final breath. He kissed her forehead one last time, then whispered with tears in his eyes, "Thank you for choosing me far beyond the heavens." Among endless silver threads, Karma quietly watched the scene. Another regret had disappeared. Another broken destiny had been repaired. Another wish had been fulfilled. The last fragment of the original Elvira's soul gently appeared before her. Unlike before, there was no pain in her expression, only gratitude. "Thank you." Her voice was little more than a whisper. "I was loved. I finally reached the ending I always wished for." The fragments slowly dissolved into countless silver lights. One by one, they drifted upward, then disappeared into the sky. Karma quietly watched them go. "Rest peacefully. Your wish has finally come true." Sometimes, justice wasn't revenge. Sometimes, justice was simply giving someone life. They should have had it from the very beginning.